Hello Internet, this is Tombox delivering a side deck series episode, the episode where you guys input your side deck options for random scenarios that I throw out at you. And this time we're going to be talking about mirror matches. And if you want to be part of the discussion, you can check out the Discord link down below. But for mirror matches, what do we do? Now, before we get into this discussion here and this card list, we gotta do an announcement of the winner of the giveaway. So, Marvin Campos, congratulations! You are the winner of the Slayer vs. Beast mat, the standard edition, of course. And, well, congratulations! I heard you were just getting back into the game, and what a great way to get into the game by, well, getting a free mat designed by Tombox and created by Imperium Duelist. So thank you guys. For those of you that are participated in the giveaway, well, Team Samurai X1 still has this giveaway going on for the exact same mat, and also Imperium Duelist have their secret giveaway still going on. As long as you have liked their Facebook page or like their Instagram, you are automatically participating, and I will be announcing the winners apparently on stream. And there we go. Anyways, let's go on to today's content. Today's content will be about mirror matches and what are the side deck cards that you would want to use against them. Now, knowing that they're mirror matches, that potentially whatever you side potentially could hurt you as well. And you don't want that. So, what are the angles that you approach side decking for the mirror match? Of course, you know your own weaknesses, and you know certain cards only affect your opponent and not yourself. You know, some people consider using your opponent's cards against them, like switching control, taking control of their monster. What else is there? Perhaps sharing the name of something could also trigger other effects of other monsters. And potentially, you know the ins and outs of the deck, you know how to shut them down, you know the tempo. So that's exactly what we're going to get into. So this is going to be 10 generic sides for the mirror match. And this is not in any order in particular. Number 1, we have Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Well, this monster is especially useful in the mirror match because, well, it rips apart basically your opponent's extra deck. Simply by discarding this card while your opponent controls more monster than you, well, you can reveal one extra deck monster, and your opponent banishes all copies of that monster. So for decks that are extremely reliant on one particular boss monster in their extra deck, namely, well, Burning Abyss and ABCs back in the day, yeah, well, going second doesn't seem so bad as long as you are the only person that has access to, well, the main boss monster. You are the monopoly in the mirror match. You have the full utility while they do not, and that's where this Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries comes in. It does come at the cost of a -1 because technically, although they lost utility, they didn't really lose any cards, and you have to discard a card for it. So as long as they can still play the tempo game, you still might be under a bit of trouble, but overall, you definitely have much more advantage over your opponent because you still have the most important monster of your deck. Number 2, Lullaby of Obedience. And this spell card is definitely one of the more fun ones that allow you to play with your opponent's main deck as if it was your own. Well, by declaring one monster card name in your opponent's deck at the cost of 2,000 life points, they can either special summon it onto your side of the field or put it in your hand, and it ignores summoning conditions, so there's that going for it too. Now, what do we use this for? Well, since you and your opponent run the same deck and basically the same extra deck, you can take full advantage of that monster that they give you, especially when the name matters. For example, Zodiacs, they give you a Rapier. Well, they're definitely not going to put it in your hand, because if they put it in your hand, you're never going to summon that rat, and therefore they're always going to be short a combo. But if they summon onto your side of the field, back then you could basically play with 4 rats, that extra summon. I don't know what you would do with that extra summon. Or right now you can play it as if you had the 3 rats in your deck and you use your opponent's, basically let it sit under your monster for the longest time. Very fun stuff. And even for pendulums, you call Pendulum Sorcerer. Are they going to summon onto your side of the field? Because if they summon it, well, Pendulum Sorcerer will pop 2 cards and will get you that extra search, even though you do dig it out for your opponent. So when you do use this card, you do dig out the card for your opponent as well, so they have some sort of balancing factor of recovering with the card that came out already. Now, funnier enough, there's other cards you can call. Like, for now, since Maxi is at 1, you can call Maxi for a Maxi check at the cost of 2,000 life, summon it onto your side of the field because your opponent's definitely not giving you that card. But another hand trap that you can call would be Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. It basically keeps its full effect. You basically pay 2,000 life points for one of your opponent's hand traps on the field that is live, because Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit can send itself to the graveyard while it is on the field to pop a face-up card that is activating. Yeah, so you got that going for you too. So Lullaby of Obedience, definitely a very flexible hand trap mirror match side. Number 3, Sidewalker. Now Sidewalker is a more interesting card because it is a very high skill ceiling card. If you call the wrong card, you will get punished for it because it can be easily played around. You're only preventing one card from going off. But since this is a mirror match, you should know what your opponent is playing. You should know the central combos. If you don't know the central combos, now you have a skill gap on top of a really high skill ceiling card. Now, Sidewalker, if you call off the right card, you can basically prevent your opponent from even comboing off and setting up as much as you do. If you have an additional special summon on top of the normal summon Sidewalker, I do recommend trying this card out. If you play Brilliant Fusion, you can normal summon out this card and will basically turn off a card and then continue on with your combo. You can prevent your opponent from comboing. You can also prevent them from countering because Sidewalker is an extremely flexible card. Number 4, Fiend Comedian. Now Fiend Comedian is a very useful side deck card in mirror matches which both decks rely on the graveyard as resources. So decks like Infernoids, decks like BA, you don't want your opponent to fill up with BA cards in the graveyard. You guys kind of get the idea. And why is this card so useful? Well, the effect is that if you flip a coin and if you call it right, your opponent banishes their entire graveyard. If you call it wrong, you mill equal to the cards in their graveyard. So essentially catching up. This is almost like that grass looks greener. You match your opponent's game state. And back then, milling cards in the graveyard was really bad. And this card's release was very, very old. It was from Legacy of Darkness. And back then, I guess that was a painful way of playing. But now it's just a win-win situation if you can flip this card off. Number 5, Exchange. Who would have thought that would be talking about Exchange in this segment? But Exchange is a very funny card to actually side against your opponent, especially in a mirror match, because you can see your opponent's hand, you can see how good their hand actually is, and then you can take away the combo piece. Given that you will only give him a terrible option of you presetting everything that you're already going to use, and then you give him a really crappy card that potentially could just benefit you when it's sent to the graveyard. Exchange. And simply by having knowledge over your opponent's hand, you know the tempo of how they're going to play. Of course, this also gives them the knowledge of what's in your hand, unless of course you only had one card in your hand to begin with and everything's already preset, and then you give him a piece of crap. Yeah, that's also a very funny way that you can use this. Who suggested this? Number 6, Wiseman's Chalice. Now, Wiseman's Chalice is a very fun card to play, especially if you go second and your opponent sets up a bit of a graveyard for you. Their graveyard is now your resource, and you can special summon one monster from their graveyard, under the condition that you return it to them at the end of the turn, and you cannot synchro with it, and you cannot tribute it. Fair enough. But I'm just going to overlay with it. I'm just going to make it into an Xyz material and just move on from there. Especially Zodiac monsters. I'm just going to overlay on top of that. Get my own Dryden. Keep my plays going. It's going to be very, very fun. And in Satellar Mirror Match, I remember using this card against Satellar Knights. And yeah, boy, did I have a good time with your Deneb. Letting me search out my deck and then basically letting me combo off with your card. This card is very fun. But also have to be very careful because, you know, not a lot of people do favor this card. But you can consider it as like a very crappy version of Lullaby of Obedience. Number 7, Fog King. So this is a mirror match card for tribute summon based decks. Whether it be Monarchs, whether it be True Dracos. Who knows if you're actually going to play this card for True Dracos. But Fog King is the tribute summoning card for no tributing, because it has the same effect as Mask of Restrict, where neither player can tribute cards as long as this card remains face up on the field. So I guess in that mirror match it does hurt a lot, because if your central mechanic is tributing and you tribute summon this card off, chances are you're not going to enjoy it. But for True Dracos, it's okay. You can use Dragonic Diagram to pop a trap and pop this card. So maybe it's not as favorable, but definitely during the Monarch era, this card was a pain in the ass to deal with just because of the lack of outs against a Fog King. You need to clear him in some other way, and if he's backed by a March of the Monarchs, man, he is impossible to kill. You can't even kaiju this guy off just because kaijus require tributes as well. Number 8, Mind Control. Going back to the root of why certain side deck cards are useful, Mind Control can take control of your opponent's monster. And since your opponent's monsters share an archetype with your monsters, well, let's take maximum advantage of it and not give that monster back. Simply by overlaying on top of it, or by simply just synchroing with it. Or maybe you can use it to pay certain costs. Who knows what you can do with that monster. As long as you don't tribute it. That's the only condition that you can't use that monster. You can't tribute it and you have to give it back if you can't get rid of it. Using it to pay costs obviously is one of the best ways to do it. And you can use it to, well, pop a Draconic Diagram. You can use it to, well, as a Zodiac monster, you can stack a monster on it and keep it. And, you know, as Burning Abyss, you can take over a Dante and, well, turn it into a Beatrice if you so choose. There's tons of things you can have fun with this card, and that's what's so great about the card in general. And this card existed for quite some time now. In the Synchro era, this card definitely spiked up for good reason, because you can take control face down monsters, and Gravekeeper Spy was one of the best monsters at the time. And that's why Mind Control. And following Mind Control, the next two cards will also be control related, but in different aspects. Number 9, Enemy Controller. Now, Enemy Controller is very similar to Mind Control, where you can technically just take control of your opponent's monster and do the old-fashioned get rid of it through synchroing, get rid of it through Xyz summoning. But in addition to that, you can actually use it in the battle phase. You can use their monster if you have any sort of battle benefits with your monster sharing the same archetype. Say you deal damage, you get additional search, this is the card for you. In fact, what's one of the best things to do is that you can surprisingly OTK your opponent using their own monster, because you remove one of the walls. Say you couldn't clear everything, but you take that monster, you swing with it, and you can get game. But even if you can't get game with it, you can use it as a material to overlay for your own dudes, therefore never returning that resource that, well, you basically took from them. And that's why Enemy Controller, you can see that it is a much more aggressive version of Mind Control. Finally, number 10, we have Gradle Eagle or Gradle Alligator. Why these two in particular? Because they can be triggered off through monster effects or spell cards. These two monsters I love because, well, in the current format, there's Zodiac Barrage and there's also Draconic Diagram that can pop off the Alligator. And from that point on, your opponent has to, like, think very carefully of what they want to do, because they're under a very awkward situation where you're going to take control of one of your opponent's monsters. And as a side deck for mirror matches, the name of their monsters matter the most, and you can gain the most benefits through the name itself, and therefore you usually don't have to return the resource that you steal. And that's why most of these cards in this list involve stealing and taking control of your opponent's cards, or basically not let them combo off. And Gradles are, well, one of the decks, basically snatch steal deck. And since you can proc off these effects yourselves while gaining advantage, why would you not take advantage of that? And I remember using this Pendulum Sorcerer with a Gradle Eagle, popped off my own Eagle with the Sorcerer, getting me the additional search, triggering him in the graveyard, allowing me to take control of my opponent's board. It was hilarious. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with these side deck monsters, but I would say that at best, most of these are just text, but depending on the format, who knows how far that some of these options can go. And that would be the monsters and cards for the mirror match side decking. These are very generic options that you can try. Of course, there's much more specific ways to counter certain decks, perhaps interrupting their mechanic, but if you want generic mirror match side deck cards, here are some of these cards right here. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit me up with a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, don't forget about the Imperium Duelist giveaway, hit the subscribe, and I'm going to proceed to the end phase. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.